Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser.
And I'm Logan.
And I'm Duncan from Duncan's Band of Brothers.
But together we are modeling
for advantage.
Look at that, eh? That's a melody there, right there. All right, who we got in the chat tonight? We have got Rich John. We've got Nick from Team Clueless Games. Hello there, Nick. I understand you got a birthday coming up, some little bird told me. Paul Parker and Mike Walnut is here. Gary, Saffron69. Hello, Gary. Gary built these for me, and I will be painting this tonight. So there's a segment cut out pretty quick. Axe and Axe Consists in the arena. Owen Glendower is here from Beyond the Grave, the right, true, righteous King of Wales. Alad is here, all the Welsh boys together. Ham and Jam. Glendower says this is the first time catching us live. Well, welcome. That's Gary again. Not sure Johnny B is alive. John is not with us tonight. John's father is not well. So he's gone to hospital with his dad. Rich M currently flitting between late Romans and some French for the French Indian Wars. The French, mate, you picked the wrong team, Rich. Where was I? Tony Halton. Bears Army. Isn't that you, Logan? More on that later.
That's the partner.
Right. Lazy Pirate Painting. Duncan FX. Games with Coffee. Ashley. Need to get in touch with you guys, get you back on the show, but you have to promise to hit him at least once. It's more fun that way. Howard Everton with my favorite emoji. Nick says my birthday was Friday. 40 years young and still beautiful, my friend. I've seen the pictures. Rose is here. Bears Army saying your own wife saying hi, our girlfriend saying hi from the other room. Yeah. A bit of love out there for John. Obviously, we all hope your dad makes a speedy recovery, my friend. Rose is here. She can tell you we said that. Yeah, hobby-wise, I got one of these TT Combat French buildings. Gary made a whole bunch of these for us a while ago. One day, I've got a cobblestone mat that we're looking for an alternative bolt action board. But on the subject of bolt action boards, Duncan, for anybody that doesn't know, and you've been on the show before, and we've done interviews, tell them who you are, what you're all about, and when you're next going to shave.
Probably about the same time that I next visit the dentist, to be honest. So my name's Duncan. I, for those that don't know, came up with a crazy lockdown idea just after getting divorced. That coming up with getting somebody to build 64 square foot of bolt action terrain for me would be a really sensible thing to do. So I commissioned a scenic company, Geek Gaming Scenics, and you may well have seen one or two videos that were produced on that to build this outrageous set of 4x4 sections, with the main aim of using them to take them out and promote the hobby, and with that to also raise some money for a charity that's pretty close to my interests. I've been a long-term kidney patient for 20 years or so, and was waiting for a transplant when COVID hit. So it seemed like a good idea to try and combine those once I finally got out of the nightmare of isolation and lockdown. And we first took the very first section out to Salute at Salute 21, I think it was, back in the November at the end of 21. And have been going out to a number of different shows since, most notably to the UK Games Expo, where we've now demonstrated the boards and raised a fair amount of money for the last couple of years. And had the good pleasure of meeting the Restless Kaiser when all of this was just a dream. There's a good friend of my son's whose dad works at the same school as the Kaiser, if you can work all of that out.
Did they in a football team together or something?
I think they play rugby together.
They play rugby together, yeah.
And so Neil put me in touch with Michael, and we had a conversation about when this was just a pipe dream, I think, didn't we, sir? And And I think you'd heard quite a lot of people come up with grand ideas in the past. And I think your principal response, come back to me when you got something to show me.
Yeah, to be fair, I was a little bit like, you realise how big a plan this is. But it all happened. All right, so Logan, shall I say, one of your Confederates, but he's now running his own thing. So Logan, people probably don't know you, we've not had you on the show before. So just let them know who you are and what you're about. Just briefly, we're going to talk in more detail a bit later.
Yeah. So I'm Logan. I've been with Duncan since the beginning. I actually went and helped him at the first salute we did, and was working with him before my son was sick, but then found out that January after that salute that my son had kidney issues. So I was already helping out kidney charities, but of course Duncan was my first call, and he was always a huge support. Of course, the cause got more important to me after having my son dealing with that. And I had this great scheme of, we were painting models with my son at the hospital, and I ran out of models to paint. So I said, hey, Duncan, when we go out and do the shows, do you care if I try to collect some models? My son goes by Bear. So we made Bear's Army, and we just try to take the cost away of the hobby. So when people are doing dialysis or any other things at the hospitals, long-term stays, they can have a hobby to enjoy and get into a good community. My son did have his transplant, though. So let me say that, because everybody always asks. He did have his transplant in January.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Bear's Army in the second half of the show. This is very much a what does MfA do for charity? Well, we try and give it a bit of exposure, is what we do. That's the very least we could do. So we're going to talk about that. So you went to the UK Games Expo, second year. I got some photos. So it's probably the way to go about it. Do you reckon that's the way to go about it? I'll put the photos up and you kind of talk about what's happening, and we'll see where the chat goes from there.
Yeah, sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So let's just find that. These are in no particular order. They're just the order that we took them in. So this was the scene we were greeted with when John and I arrived, I think.
Yep. Well, you've got for both the years that we've done the expo, and this year was special and different to last year. Last year was the first year that it was done. We'd been connected and contacted by the organisers of the Games Expo, who'd seen some videos that had been produced after the first show we did at Salute. And so, look, we really like the idea of what you guys are doing. We'd love to see you at the Games Expo. It's not necessarily a big wargaming show, but it is a huge 3-day event that's all about board gaming and gaming generally. So that seemed for me to be an absolutely awesome place to bring the table, because part of what we're looking to do is to bring wargaming and bolt action to a younger audience, and to an audience that wouldn't necessarily know about it, which is why it's something like UK Games Expo is such a great place to go to, because it's not just preaching to the converted. There's lots of people who won't.
No, I mean it really isn't. It is a board games, card games.
Oh, it's huge,
plushies and knickknacks kind of place, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people just kind of interested in the broader gaming scene, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's moved on, I think, from a couple of hundred geeks in a single room at the Hilton when it first started, to now having over 50,000 visitors across 3 huge halls over 3 days of a long weekend. So it's a huge event now. Last year, as I say, was the first year that we got the invite to do it. It was the first time for the expo to run post-COVID. And I managed to get myself a kidney transplant just a couple of months beforehand, and wasn't able to attend myself. And as so previously has happened, and delightfully so, a huge number of people stepped up and actually ran the event for me. Logan was very much there. Modelling for Advantage came down and did a day. There was Alex Sutherland,
Storm of Steel. A lot of these guys will know him.
Fabulous Andy Lyloff, Ken Baldrock from The Eccentric Man. So a whole bunch of people came down and supported it, which was amazing. I was sat in my room in isolation, recovering from a transplant, and watching the on tabletop live feed of it taking place. It was awesome. This year we had the invite to go back again. I've had a lot of health problems this year, so really wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. But Logan stepped up and made sure that everything was pretty much organised so that we were able to do it this year. And I was actually able to attend for the first time. Being back there for the second year was awesome. And the organisers knew who we were. A lot of the traders then knew who we were. And the response that we've had has just been astounding. And again, we had lots of help and support. I mean, the photos you got, I think the ones you and Mr. Woolley took yourselves, I think, and you came down and joined us again on the Sunday. Not sure if we're going to see a battle report come out of that, but I know you blew lots of things up on the table and had lots of young people involved, which was great. So we also, in this picture as well, you can see a couple of the guys from the Ministry of Miniatures YouTube channel, which is a relatively new bolt action sort of after action battle report channel. And Justin from the Ministry of Miniatures came down and helped us out for the whole weekend. They came down and ran a game, I think, on the Sunday morning, and then you guys came over and took over the sort of 8x4 section that we had on the Sunday afternoon, I think, sir.
Yeah, the Ministry of Miniatures guys, by the way, in terms of battle reports, I didn't know them beforehand. I checked them out. That guy puts a lot of work into his edits. They're really, well produced videos. They were. If you like your bolt action, it's not one to put on the background. That is one to watch because he's put the time into it. So these when we got there, these guys were playing a game on your board. Had they booked the table? Had they made a donation? How did that work then?
So on the Sunday morning, the guys from Ministry of Miniatures came down and we gave them access to the boards to play a game for themselves. But what everybody did who came down was to make, if they were running a demonstration game such as this, was to make it available for people to jump in and participate. We only put the 8x4 section together on the Sunday, the final day, because it was the quietest.
Yeah, so you're running them as two separate boards before then, weren't you?
Yeah, and we had the Brecourt Manor board as well. So we had 3 4x4 sections running participation games pretty much non-stop all the way through the expo. And we had some people who'd been last year who booked to come back and see everybody and book another spot. There were guys who booked a certain time slot last year to play a game who came back and said this was the best part of the whole 3 days. Can we please have that time slot again? And of course, all the way through this, the principal reason, I say the principal reason, the principal reason for doing it is to get kids ideally involved in the game and to share, this amazing, immersive, hands-on, realistic-looking scenery and draw people into the hobby. But we were also raising money for charity for the National Kidney Federation, and we ran a raffle all the way through that with some incredible support from a whole range of organisations who now.
You had some amazing prizes in that raffle. I know Woolley Mike came away with a bunch of stuff as a last-minute ticket.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mike Woolley seemed to walk away with half the board. Which But I think we had a Band of Brothers box set every day from Warlord. We had some amazing tanks from Rubicon. We had stuff from paints from Colour Forge. We had stuff from Crooked Dice, Wayland Games, Seventh City. There were just so many people that were able to help and to support this, which was just amazing.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's nice to have, on some level, it's like this is my hobby, and there aren't many charities in this hobby, so it's nice to have something you can commit to. So I'll roll through the pictures because you mentioned the Brecourt Manor board.
Yeah.
So this was the first board that was complete. So just tell us what we're looking at here, because I realise we jumped straight into this. We haven't talked about the pedigree of the board. Some people won't know. So this was the first one. Tell us what's going on here.
Right. Well, it's if you've ever watched the Band of Brothers TV show, and certainly it's something that I was a huge fan of. This is a board representing the gun emplacements at Brecourt Manor, which were assaulted by Dick Winters and the Men of Easy Company on the morning of the 6th of June, the D-Day itself. The guns were a battery of 405mm howitzers that were aimed at Omaha Beach, which hadn't been picked up by the Allied reconnaissance prior to the landings. And Dick Winters was tasked with going and taking out the guns, which I think he did with it was nine men originally, and then another 5 that came and joined them to finish it off.
It's a handful of guys and a few thermite grenades, isn't it? That's what makes it so iconic.
Pretty much, yeah. And when I was starting to think about the whole project, there was a Band of Brothers box set from Warlord Games, which was and I think you yourselves have done a fine video and
I learned to play. Yeah, if you want to learn more
on that very set.
Yeah,
and my kind of skewed thinking was, well, instead of getting a box set of figures, because everybody goes and does that, why don't I commission a scenic company with a YouTube channel to make a really professional board that's kind of museum quality that then everyone will want to bring their figures and play on, which saves me having to do all of that painting stuff, which I'm really not very good at and haven't got very much patience for. So it was kind of a bit reverse engineered in the middle of the lockdown madness. And this was the first one that came out. By linking it with the Band of Brothers, I thought it was a great way of perhaps bringing it to the attention of people who wouldn't click on something about a wargaming show as well. And Geek Gaming Scenics produced this most amazing first board. And the video, I think, that was made on it really took the level of attention into what we were doing into a level that we would never have got to anywhere without going on board with a partner like that in the first instance. So you got
these trees are handmade, right? Somebody mentioned the trees.
Yeah, I think they're
huge.
Yeah,
trees.
The Woodland Scenics armatures with seafoam that's then dipped into liquid latex and then flocked and sprayed to death with hairspray and various other lacquers to keep it in place. But I think I've never been told this personally because I wasn't there at the UK Games Expo last year, but there was a rumour that the boards actually made it down from Wakefield to Birmingham on the back of a Range Rover and an open top one at that. So I'm
70 miles per hour is not what they've been tested to. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So generally speaking, at the events, you have this particular board because people know the scene. You've made a kind of introductory scenario for this particular board, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pre-written scenario already in one of the Warlord campaign books, and we've just adapted that a little bit. It's a really lovely scenario because there's no vehicles involved. The guns are not firing at anyone. You just gain victory points as the German player for issuing a fire order for each of the guns in the version that we do. So it's really just basic, simple infantry rules. You've got the US paras, which as veterans, I mean, they're pretty hard to kill, which is exactly what you want to offer to a youngster who's maybe not played the game before.
They want to win.
They want to win. So it's a pretty tough scenario for the Germans to win, but it looks amazing, and it's a great fun participation game that brings in the element of history. It links it to a TV game, and it's just worked beautifully as a way of gaining people's interest in the very first instance.
Absolutely. And who painted and built and so forth the models that you've got? Because this is like a particular set, isn't it? I saw you with this at Salute before the rest of the stuff was ready.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly as the first section. It's a challenge when you're putting something out of a board of this quality out, is you kind of need some really good figures to go on it as well. So I actually commissioned a professional painter, Jack Bellaby, who did a wonderful job doing some of the initial German Grenadiers and the US Paras for me. And then Barry Evans did a fantastic job doing a bit more of the German guns and the artillery crews. So there's really high standard painting on the figures that are there, which again just really helps to make the whole thing immersive and really kind of, if you like, shows off the hobby at its best. it's the kind of thing I used to see behind glass in museums when I was a kid. I was fascinated by, but always hugely frustrated that I couldn't get my hand past the glass.
Yes.
And the great thing about this is that there is no glass. You can put your hands on it, and you're more than welcome to
and
come
you do let the kids handle it, and they do handle it a bit roughly as well, don't they? That is,
and they've stood up to it really well. It was very much part of the brief, which is this is not a board for display. This is a board to be used. So can we build it as durable as possible? And the guys who made it did a fantastic job in doing that.
All right, let's roll on to the next picture. So these are just kind of, so this is it just from another angle. You can see the game being played. So the Americans kind of start at one end of the trench, if you remember that. It was a very like shaky camera in the TV series as they move from position to position. Yeah. And that's the basic setup the Americans are working with, right?
Yeah. They come on actually just at the sort of top end of that board where the two orange things are. That's the kind of entry point for the Americans. They work their way. There's a machine gun nest hidden behind the sort of tree that's sort of darker green towards the sort of top edge. And they've got to get through that and the initial gun crew and then work their way through the trench.
And you were kind of running back-to-back 45-minute games on this all weekend, weren't you?
It was literally non-stop for 3 days.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, really nice. So you've got you're using the Warlord stuff I can see there. Is that right? It's the Warlord US Paras.
Yeah.
They look like my models.
It's the Warlord Paras trying to look a little bit more like the 42 uniform rather than the 43. But there's also the I think Jack very kindly helped me out with the exclusive Dick Winters mold that they did quite a while ago, which is the guy at the centre of the shot with the kind of metal base, which is his dog tags, which is a really nice little special model. Right.
He's got his own base. So we turned up, was like, come on, let's put these boards together. Let's have a go. John and I to play. And we basically did. John's looking very unhappy in that picture. Look at that face. and Logan's face is like, wow. And we did what we did before, recognizing like we were here to display the game, not to play a game, but to people to see the game being played. We put a massive amount of stuff out, especially tanks, but we only put 6 dice in the bag. So we would just, and we were always willing to put more. We brought a lot more models than we needed. It's like if we need it, we'll just put some more models on. And that enabled us to. So look at all them tanks. You ever played a bolt action game with that many tanks?
Fantastic.
And it makes better use of that second board, the one you got in the middle. So these are the other. This is the second and third board as the set. So do you want to tell the guys a little bit about these two boards?
Yeah. So that the idea about going for 16 foot by 4 foot was by breaking it down into 4 foot by 4 foot modular sections. It would give me the best return I could for that investment. So we wanted to feature the Band of Brothers, and we got 2 boards which are kind of specifically focused on that. The Brecourt Manor gun emplacement that you've just seen in the initial photos. The town at the far end in this photo then is Sarissaville or Carrington-esque.
Sarissaville, right? Yeah.
But certainly there to represent a kind of the approaches to Carrington from the Band of Brothers exploits again. And what I wanted was to have a scenic board that had some elevation, that had a decent amount of bocage, to act as a kind of joining board. So what you then got is this hill board, which again can be after Carrington when I think it's the 6th Fallschirmjägers counterattacked. The 501st, the Easy Company were again holding a hedge line, preventing them coming back. It's an option to be able to kind of recreate that with the way this board is set up. But also because it's just purely a scenic board, we can use this for a Napoleonics game. We could do pretty much anything with this board. And
I will have King Arthur come running down that hill at some point. I'm telling you, I want King Arthur charging down the hill.
But the way we position the roads means that this will link on to the fourth board eventually, and enable us to give a number of different variations around different 8x4 combinations, 12x4, as well as ultimately the final grand 16-foot by 4-foot display board.
So, and at the far end of the table, that's the Sarissaville, as you called it. That is the edge of Carentan, or that's what it's there to represent, right?
Carentan-ish, or it's kind of Carentan if Carentan was a town in England, North Yorkshire.
Yeah. But that's okay, right?
It's fantastic.
It looks all right. And not only are these all these roofs from memory, all of these roofs came off.
Yes.
Yep.
I think
all of the roofs come off. The first floors are then sealed, so we don't take the first floors off.
No,
but
I don't think the buildings would hold together if you did that. Yeah. And we played that. We probably had about 3,000 points worth of stuff on the table. I didn't run out of rooms to put inventory in. There's plenty there. And other guys have played across that board.
Yep.
And they seem to be having a perfectly decent game of it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
just using that as a single board.
Which is again the ideal with all of this. You can have a great 500 to 50 point game, and even in the town board, you can have a mental hand-to-hand 1,000-point game on a 4-foot by 4-foot board. Yeah. So, what the long-term dream with creating all of this was to be able to have the boards go out to various different places at different times if necessary. So we could have one board in one place. So if a shop wanted to have the boards and run some games and help to raise some money for charity, we could send that along and still be doing some other bits and pieces at the same time, as well as giving us the variety to keep doing different things so that we're not just doing the same demonstration type game every time that we take it out, which is obviously the challenge with a fixed board. But that was the modularity, I guess, was the attempt to try to get the payoff with that, and also the ridiculous reason of buying and commissioning 4 sections. Yeah. That then gives that many more opportunities to swap things around.
Oh, I don't know if you noticed. There's roses in the background there.
Yep. And not to take away from that town, because one of the first things I did helping with Duncan is I helped make all the furniture. All those top floors have broken beds and fireplaces, like they're fully furnished, blown up houses.
So when I first started looking for people to help out with this, when I was looking to do Salute back in 2021, and even earlier when I was first starting to talk to Geek Gaming Scenics about getting the board together and the idea about it all, Logan was one of the very first people who responded to a post that I put up on Facebook, and that's how we got to know each other in the first instance. So Logan actually had a 3D printer and offered to print up any stuff that we might need. And so there are various beds and tables and bits and pieces that you actually put towards that are included in the final thing as well.
Yeah, but it makes it feel that much more real, like how you were saying, of something you would see as a diorama. Because you take those roofs off and there's the chair that didn't get blown up next to the fireplace that's falling apart, instead of an empty room like I'll admit happens on my war game tables whenever we have rooms a lot. Yeah.
And as wargamers, finding the time to do this is, because like you say, you can play on this board a fair few times, but you couldn't play on it every week for the rest of your life without starting to get a bit fed up with it. It's beautiful, which is why none of us have anything like this, right? And why getting a chance to play on it at a show. So this one, this is just a fuller picture of the Breakout Manor, those gun emplacements. So that is that game. And there's Duncan showing people, explaining, mansplaining perhaps. This guy, you introduced me to him, Duncan.
I did indeed, yeah. So there was unusually, well, for the first time this year, there was actually a bolt action tournament taking place at the UK Games Expo, which we found out a couple of weeks before we went down. And that was manna from heaven as far as we were concerned. The fact to know that there were going to be bolt action enthusiasts who were definitely around. So we went over and said hello, and they brought lots of guys over to come and say hello to us. And I think you were quite surprised to discover there was a tournament going on there as well, weren't you, Mike? So
yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like a tournament kind of venue, but there was quite a big bolt action tournament. So these guys are Juggernaut Bolt Action Podcast. And they run hyper competitive events, by which I mean, 6 flamethrowers, 3 science fiction tanks that never existed, and a couple of Nebelwerfer. Those are the kind of lists that these guys play. And obviously,
never seen so many leaves on the same table. Yeah.
I'm in this for the history, is what I love about it. So you don't see any of that stuff in mine. But it was nice talking to these guys, and they're very much, it's in the rules, so you can do it. And I'm hoping we can get them on the live show and talk to them, because it's a very different philosophy to the same game, which we love. But it worked. There was a good synergy there, I thought, because people were looking at their event and it's like, this is hardcore wargaming going on here. But if you like it, go and talk to those guys and they'll show you how to play it.
Yeah.
And they were sending people over. And they were nice. They were a nice group of lads. It was a Shark Tank as a tournament, but
I'm not sure my armies would go anywhere near one of those boards, I have to say.
No. But they were nice lads, and they do. If you're interested in competitive bolt action, they do have a podcast, and they do talk about the kind of stuff that we never talk about what's meta and what's not. We go like, what does a German infantry platoon look like? Let's start there. Whereas they go, what's good for 75 points? Let's start with that.
Yeah,
it's different philosophy. But yeah, and it was a short interview we did because it was a really noisy venue, wasn't it? There was. What did you say? There were 20,000 people there on the Saturday.
I think 22,000 people. I think on the Saturday. On the Sunday, I think, which was the day you were there, was a little bit quieter. But yeah, it was hugely busy.
What was it? 60? Was it? It was like 62 overall.
I think something like that, including exhibitors. I think they had something like 62,000 people there across the whole weekend.
And you can see the Bears Army people back there. We're going to talk to Logan in a moment. The next bit is a video clip. Hopefully, I've muted the volume, but you might hear a brief crackle, because this was what I think was one of the things I was really pleased to have been a part of. And I think that this kind of shows something of what you wanted, right? Which was just kids wanting to get involved. This kid was so happy to play this game at this event. And I was saying to his mum, I was like, are we okay using this film footage and so forth? Because obviously it's kids. And she was just happy that he was being entertained, wasn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, we had scenes like this all the way through the weekend.
I'm not suggesting it was just me. It was just like
no. Mate. I mean, what was glorious was for you to be part of that and to see that. This for me. I had an early experience going to a wargaming club. I won't say which one, but I was about 11, 12, 13, and there were a lot of middle-aged men, and I wasn't really made to feel very welcome.
A
very intimidating place to go in, and that kind of was a block for me in kind of exploring the hobby further at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
A big shout out to the guy in the middle, you can see with a black t-shirt under the back, Ollie, who helped us out, and his partner just behind your right shoulder there, Sophie. They were with us all week and did all weekend and did an amazing job. But yeah, this was exactly the kind of idea to have families, young kids. We had kids who were coming and joining with their dads who knew the game. Other kids just blown away by the level of history knowledge of some of the kids who came down and chatted with us. It was just awesome. And what we did this year for the first time with the help of Warlord is we had a painting station set up as well. So you can just see in the background of this, two kids who were painting paras that Warlord had primed and made for us, and presented some paints, so that we had people actually trying to be painting all the way through as well. So just showing another kind of part of the creative element of the hobby and demonstrating that as well. So it's beautiful, and yeah, seeing shots like this of middle-aged men playing with young boys is just a delight, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think this is what I had wanted my first experience of wargaming to be like, and it wasn't. It was going to a club full of middle-aged men who were doing their own thing. They were not come up and play. They were not, and John was doing the same with another kid you can't see on this camera, you know. And it's I think it's what we come to do without necessarily realizing, you know, like the way that we'd set it up, like. We haven't pointed this out. We've just dumped a load of stuff on the table, pull a dice out and decide what to do next. That's how you play ball action. And it was really great to do that. Yeah. And you did, so you see mooching around the background. You did get some support from Warlord. It's worth you taking a moment to thank them. So what kind of support do Warlord offer? Because it's a bit more than you might expect, isn't it? It's not just money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Warlord, we built quite a good relationship with them over the last couple of years. I mean, obviously, they're really chuffed to see somebody being an ambassador for the gaming system and for the game generally. But they've given us lots and lots of prize support and help for the raffle. They've helped us out with kind of game mechanics. So, you know, markers and lasers and all sorts of bits and pieces like that whenever we need it. This time round, they not only provided the great prize support, but came along and ran the painting station for us, and have even helped us with being able to move the boards around a little bit, because as you can imagine, transportation for this is probably the biggest issue.
So these boards have been shipped around the country in the Warlord van.
Yeah, which is you know, above and beyond as far as I'm concerned. So hugely appreciated. Yeah. And you know, as a way of thanking them for that support, we've been delighted to accept an invitation to be part of the Warlord Open Day again this year. We were down showing the boards at the Open Day last year, and really looking forward to being down and showing them up again in Nottingham. I think of the 2nd of September on their Open Day.
Very nice. If anybody wants to contribute, it is Duncan's Band of Brothers on Just Giving. I'm just going to get a link now and post it in there. So that's the kind of quarantine thing. We come back to talk about the fourth board because Logan has been sat there for 40 minutes, barely being able to say a word. Everyone here is thinking, what are you doing shipping in these mad American people? Logan, tell us a little bit about how you've become involved in this project and then where you've been taking it in a separate direction. You know, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, I'm an American. I do live in England, I promise. I didn't get into the hobby myself. I'm only 28. I didn't get into the hobby till I was 22, 23. I had an accident at a steel shop I was working at. Couldn't walk for 6 months. When I was able to get out one of the days, saw, you know, a hobby shop. I built cars before, picked up a box of Space Marines, and well, I think I played 5th edition twice of 40K. But anyways, I fell in love with the other game systems. It opened up that world. And the hobby that was what got me through my isolation in that time. So it became really important to me right when COVID was hitting and stuff. I had a lot of money saved up and was going to have to change jobs anyway. So I was like, I'll go out to England for 2-3 months and go to Nottingham because that's the mecca of wargaming. I mean, you got Warlord there, you have GW there. There's just so much, and as a history nerd too, and you know, you got Robin Hood tales and everything else. Still haven't actually made it to Nottingham, so I'm looking forward to game stays because COVID.
Oh, right.
I still haven't actually ever been to Warlord HQ or Warhammer World
because you got here and it was COVID.
Yes, and COVID hit. Yeah. Knew my lovely partner beforehand, ended up needing a place to stay, and then by the time I was able to get back, we were having a little baby girl on the way, and my 4 boys. I just as soon as I started living with my partner, I guess you would say adopted those boys. I don't even see as adopted; they're mine. 3 boys. Yeah, sorry, 3 boys. We have 4 kids.
You're
Count the children.
You're the 4th boy, Logan. You need to
Yeah,
keep remembering
I'm the 4th
that.
boy. Yeah, there's 4 boys in the house. I knew that. But Duncan had put the post up. I'd bought a printer, trying to save some money with everything going on. I'm a huge history fan. Grew up with my stepdad. I think every vacation we ever went on, we had to stop at a Civil War or Revolutionary battlefield on the way. Each one we would pass. So always grew up with history. Loved the idea of what he was doing and helping kids. It was like, what can I do to help? And that's when, I can build models.
Duncan was like, well.
Yeah. And Duncan's like, I got an idea. And it was Salute 2020, not Salute 2021, but it was in 2021 because of COVID.
Yeah. That's right.
And ended up helping him with Salute. And he was telling me about, we're raising all this money for National Kidney Federation. Like, man, you sounds like you've had a hard journey. Hope I never have to worry about that. And then in that January afterwards, found out that my oldest son only had 20% function in his kidneys. Of course, my first call was Duncan. He said, hey, this is why we raise money. Call NKF. Called them up. They helped out. And I just went full in of what can I do? This group's helping me. What can I do to help give back? Mm-hmm. Part of being in severe kidney failure is you got to go on dialysis. So as a war game hobbyist, how do you entertain yourself, let alone your kid, for 4 hours? Sitting in a little chair.
Just remind people how old Bear is.
Bear's 8 now. He was 6 when we first found out. So he was 6 years old. And he was 7 when he had his transplant. Because he had his transplant in January. And we were painting models. Other kids were like, hey, can I paint a model? So if you ever have a pile of shame, take it to a hospital. They'll get rid of it for you. So I went through all my models for the kids. Duncan had gotten his new kidney, and he, I told him I would gladly be there with Andy and Storm of Steel, Alex from Storm of Steel, and everybody for the first UKGE. And I said, what would you think about if I did something? My son goes by Bear. If I did something for Bear, started this Bear's Army thing, and tried to get this community to help out, because I'm running out of stuff to give these kids, but there's a need here. Like these are people who want to get in this hobby. This hobby helped me out mentally through my hard time. Let's give it to other people going through this. And so we're a year old. We're a little over a year old. We're still picking up, getting in our strides. I'm actually I'm mixing Chaos 40K bits with Africa Corp bits right now, but I'm currently building models for the kids at the hospital. And our whole idea is to get rid of the cost.
So just to go back to that specifically, what Bear's Army is doing is going into hospitals where kids are in there for a long time.
Yeah.
Often there's very limited on what they can do other than stare at a screen. And you're providing some space where parent and child or carer and child can do something together that's creative.
And we also try to make sure that we can support them at the home too, because we know some of these stuff, like when my son got a kidney, and I know Duncan can talk about this too, we weren't allowed to leave the house for about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was even to go out and get groceries, and you get isolated that easily. So we have an email. It's Bears Army, capital letters, UK at gmail.com, and people can email us there. We have a little vetting process, and we try to we want families to be able to make memories, because unfortunately with this stuff, you don't know how many memories you can make. And I don't remember watching that many shows with my dad, but I remember building the old Jeep models with him.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing, especially with the younger kids, where maybe you do need dad help with the glue or with the sharp knife or whatever, So if people want to help out if you want to help out with Duncan's Banner Brothers, you go to click that link and just give them some cash. Maybe buy somebody a kidney.
Yeah, I mean, that'll go straight to the national. It's a Just Giving page that just goes straight to the National Kidney Federation donations page, and that helps for the work that the National Kidney Federation does, which is running a helpline, a 24-hour helpline, and really helping with families and support and patients who are going through the kidney process. And I think it's 1 in 9 people in the UK will have a significant kidney problem at some stage in their lives. It's a hugely silent disease that has a massive impact. But so we can take financial contributions that will go straight to that particular charity. What we're also looking to do is to build up the number of events that we're operating in. And ultimately, we'd like to, I think, to get Duncan's Band of Brothers set up to be a not-for-profit organisation, a community action programme, so that we can actually start to take this out into schools as part of an educative process and some other things as well. But equally, what Duncan's Band of Brothers is absolutely committed to do is to be supporting and working alongside Logan's amazing initiative of Bears Army. It would be amazing if we could get sufficient corporate sponsorship and help to be able to be sending out models and kits to children's hospitals all over the country. I mean, that's... and
people presumably to go into those hospitals and teach these parents and kids how to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the play workers. We teach the play workers. I have a good... We do a lot with Birmingham Children's. I've worked with the 2 play workers there on that ward, and now I have them messaging me going, hey, when you send the box out, make sure you got a mermaid model in there because they paint along with the kids. But, it's making sure those resources are there, because with this hobby, it's not just by yourself. It's something you can do together, be it playing the game. It's a research aspect, be it 40K of reading the lore, reading the books, from bold action perspective, learning the battles, trying to go that more historical route. There's just so much you can do to put yourself into that you forget how many hours you're doing.
And I don't know enough about this. Many of these kids are on dialysis for hours and hours a day.
So
are they able to still do painting and modeling?
Yes.
While they're in that situation.
Yeah.
Where their movements are very restricted.
You got I don't know, what would be about 2-foot table, 3-foot table in front of you, and essentially with a lot of kids, they have the main line that goes in their chest, so they can't really get out of the chair and move around. So it's just stuff you could do on a table, much like a little hobby table. And we've even gotten certain game systems to work, skirmish game systems to work, so we can even sit there and play games with them at the table after they've painted their models.
So if people want to help out with Bears Army, what you really need is stuff.
Yes.
You need paints, brushes, glue, models.
Yes.
And how should people get in touch? If you're sat on a pile of shame and you're shedding a tear for a sick kid, get down to the post office. Yeah. Logan, how do they get in touch with you if they want to contribute to Bears Army?
It's Bears Army, uppercase U, uppercase K, at gmail.com. They email that, and we will...
Bears Army UK.
Bears Army, capital UK, at gmail.com. And
I'll just put that in there and see if that... I put Bear Army. It's Bears, isn't it?
Bears, yes. And then the other way is if you're local to either Stoke or to the Board and Brum game shops, the Geek Retreat at Stoke and Board and Brum are both set up to be donations. Just take a box in, say, hey, this is for Bears Army. They'll give me a call. We get that where it needs to go. So
is that right there?
Yep, that is correct. But we do have so the local Geek Retreat here in Stoke-on-Trent and Hanley, they have been huge supporters and help to me doing this. And you just bring anything in there, say, hey, I want to go for Bears Army, and you can do that. You can even do cash there. If you go in there, they'll put it on gift card, and they make sure it's bought for the primers and things they have at the shop that I can use. And then, but then I do have to give a shout out, as we had said, to one of my other biggest supporters, other than Duncan and them, has been Crooked Dice. So I was with Carl. I knew Carl before son was sick, really loved the 7TV rule set. So when I kind of had this idea, I went to him. And I almost forget to mention them all the time because I can decide personally I want to order 4 pounds worth of models from him or 10 pounds worth of models, and he'll send me about a full box of stuff with a note going, make sure the kids get these in the hospital. He's given us all the rule sets for 7TV to be able to be used in the hospitals. He's done countless models. We have lots of great companies that help us, but he's been with us from the start. And we get new ones coming all the time. Just was talking to Raven X Studios last night, and they're helping out now. But yeah, Crooked Dice are good people with a great system and some really cool models.
They're a husband and wife team as well, aren't they? We talked to them at the Reading show.
They do all the TV-based stuff, so you get fun stuff of being able to paint Scooby-Doo and, A-Team and all that.
Or the Sweeney.
Yeah.
It's like if it was on telly in the 70s, they've got a model for it.
Well, and here in summer, 80s is launching, so they got lots of models for 80s TV.
Yeah. Are we going to be looking at like Miami Vice and stuff like that? All right. I mean, I think he's just embarking on that. We're getting close to the end of the show, but so Duncan, let's thank you, Logan.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you
for that. And you've managed to recruit a bunch of people. I mean, I saw about 4 people in Bears Army t-shirts just on the Sunday. Yeah. I don't, are these other families that are affected and they volunteer?
No.
Or?
So a lot of the ones who came up, well, Sophie was wearing one of the Bear Army shirts, as we said. They came to help with Duncan's Band of Brothers. But then, like Fiona, who was there in the shirt a lot of the times, that is she's at the Geek Retreat, and she's been helping me and Duncan get everything straight a lot, but she's really good. But just quick, not to get in Duncan's time, we were on Saturday when you weren't there, able to get both my son, who had his kidney done, but also one of his friends who had a kidney transplant about 3 weeks after him out. And the response from them, both of them are 8 years old. The response was just great. You want to talk about getting people into history? They were wanting to know what was going on, the painted models, and why we find it important to try to get those kids out to the event and stuff is like the mom of the other son was like, we don't really have the money, and I didn't even think about bringing him here, but he smiled, and still to this day, he's asking me, all right, I need some more models because I finished painting those, and he just loved it. He straight up said it was the best day of his life, and I said, there's nothing better than that, and he never even left the booth. He walked and saw the people and Daleks and stuff over in the corner, but he just stayed in the booth and played the game and painted miniatures. Right. He didn't even do everything else. So it's just giving people that experience to get out.
As a thing that's often, I was going to say about, I was just going to say that it's something that's often overlooked. Someone who works in schools, we see this. Having a very sick child is often, even though healthcare is free, is often financially ruinous because you cannot keep working. Your career just tanks. You either can't work or you can't work those hours or whatever. It's actually like that's the kind of unexpected casualty within the mix. Is the job goes out the window when you kids in that kind of situation. So even pots of glue and paints they make a difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the impact of the stuff that Logan's been doing has just been amazing. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have been associated with the idea that he had to come up with that. And we're just really keen to. I think it's such an outstanding idea that it deserves to grow and grow and grow. And so I think what it's really done for me is to kind of coalesce the idea of Duncan's Band of Brothers into being a way of kind of bringing attention to this and then helping to garner support for this initiative, because I think it's fantastic, and anything that we can do alongside to help co-promote that and to work alongside Logan is just awesome. The UK Games Expo have really picked up on the experience that Logan just spoke about with the 2 boys coming down, and we're in discussions with them for next year about seeing whether we can get some free family passes sent out to building the Birmingham Children's Hospital, actually to the event itself, and work with the hospital about how might we what kind of support placement or resting places, access to drinking water, or other bits and pieces we might need to make that a comfortable experience.
To make the experience appropriate. Yeah.
It's an event now that has got to be such a scale they're in a position where they can start affording to think about giving something back.
And they did make a sizable charity donation, didn't they? Not just to you.
Absolutely. I think they ran the huge bring and buy sale, which is a massive part of what the UK Games Expo is about, where you can come and drop off your old board games and set a price on them, and if you sell them, you get some of that money back, and UK Games Expo takes a commission on that as well, of which I think something like £25,000 was raised for charity, direct from the UK Games Expo this year. So, they're already very committed to that as an idea behind what they do. We certainly raised, I think, over £1,000 for the National Kidney Federation this year, which was by far and away the largest amount we've raised at a single event. I think nearly doubled what we did last year. And we're very keen to keep growing this. I think we started to establish what we do as an idea in people's minds. We've had some great support from some of the companies that are involved in our hobby, and we're really keen to move forward with that, and to keep taking this out to a wider audience. And ultimately, that there's the possibility that we might be able to put together our very own event at some stage. With the possibility of a venue for us.
We need to talk more about that. We've been talking about it for too long. In partly, we definitely want to have a Modelling for Advantage Gamers Day, which includes Duncan's stuff, where you can make a contribution to the National Kidney Federation to play on those boards as part of a friends and fans kind of play day, if you will, where you bring along your own games, but if you want to make a contribution, you can play on these beautiful boards, or just take pictures of other people that are. So the plan 1,000 years in the making, Duncan. The last couple of minutes, tell us about board number 4. Where are we? 1 was ages ago. 2 and 3 kind of appeared at the same time from my perspective, and then 4, it's mythical.
It's mythical. It's in process. There've been 1 or 2 changes, I think, at Geek Gaming Scenics of late. So getting the board finally up and finished has kind of got caught up in that a little bit. But we're working very hard to bring that into full fruition, and to have a 4th board that sits with the outstanding quality of the other 3. And certainly the guys at Geek Gaming Scenics have been fantastic. They're continuing to support us superbly, and obviously the table continues to act as a really great example of what you can do with the system, the products that they've got there. So yeah, it's we've got a potential to have something like the actual Brecourt Manor building itself, potentially as a 3D print. So we're it's still something we're working on. I think what we're really looking forward to now, other than the sort of Warlord Open Day in September, is moving into 2044 and the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings themselves.
2024, hopefully. I didn't just lose 20 years this morning.
Okay, then let's make it 80 years rather than the 100th anniversary, shall we? I'm feeling 20 years older, Mike, I have to say. So yeah, 24, that would be right. So we're back to the UK Games Expo. I think we've got an invite to do Salute this year, or at least hoping to take the full 16 by 4 foot table and give it a full debut at Salute, and then just exploring to see whether there's a historical venue that we might be able to go along to for the actual weekend of D-Day itself. It will be amazing to get involved in something like that next year.
And in January, we always do a Bears Army event at the Geek Retreat 24-hour one. So we're talking about trying to make sure the tables are there, where it's 24 hours gaming all for a full 24 hours in the whole store as a fun way we do to raise money for NKF and Bears Army every year. So
if you and Johnny fancy an extended long game, sir, you'd be welcome to come and join us as part of
the Geek Retreat for 24 hours. I'm too old for that gig, mate.
We have coffee.
I have my pajamas on before the show. I'm ready for bed when we close down on this. All right, guys, thanks so much for that. Hobby wise, I got some kind of beige paint on the 3 layers of this. They need several coats, but it'll be done eventually. Did you do any hobbying, Logan?
I have 6 guys put together, which are, like I said, they're a mixture of the Warlord Africa Corps and spare bits from the Chaos Guardsmen. That's just a fun
Right.
thing for the kids to paint up, because that's the
Right,
best
yeah.
part about this is doing the kit bashing to get as many cool things for the kids to paint as possible, because
Right.
we build and prime everything so the hospitals don't have to worry about any of the issues with the fumes from the glue or the primer.
Right, of course, yeah. All right, Duncan, you don't do hobbying; you pay other people to do it, right?
Well, yeah, that was what I initially did. I'm now
Yeah.
just begging people to do it.
Mhm. Yeah. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. As I say, there's an interview. It's up for members now. With that, so that will probably come out Friday. Got a few bolt action games that we have recorded. It's actually been against Woolly Mike. We had a little bit of a pause with the campaign with John. It's not gone anywhere. It's it's going to be back, just like SPQR, just on a bit of a hiatus. I know you haven't seen videos for a couple of weeks. I had a holiday, and I did not get enough done before I went on holiday, and I came back to work, and there was just so much to do. So I've been like really struggling to find editing time, but it's been great. So remember, that is National Kiddie Federation, Duncan's Band of Brothers, and Bears Army UK at gmail.com if you want to support either of those two guys. And in terms of Bears Army, I mean, even just a sprue of, Panzer Grenadiers, you're never going to build. Stick it in a
even if
jiffy
you
bag.
have half-built stuff, prime stuff that's half-built, whatever.
Because
that's
you do a lot
what
of the
I've been doing
building.
tonight is, I do all the preps. Whatever you can give me, I can find a way to use. That's been my start.
There you go.
You want to recycle it.
I'm going to send you some old tins of enamel paint, which have separated and sealed, and say, kind of challenge accepted. Guys, it has been a real pleasure. I know this is a bit different to your usual fare. I work in a school. I work with kids. Duncan is a dear friend of mine at work. I'm a big believer in us finding more ways to engage in charities that relate to our hobby. I think under the kind of Duncan Band of Brothers, I think there's a few things that are related out there that we can bring together and help, because it is a great hobby and this clearly works for a lot of these kids with kidney issues, but it's going to work for other things as well, So thank you very much. Be seeing you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.